Next to the stage, I want to bring up Chicago's very own, the Second City, Andrew Eninger and Robyn Scott.
Thank you. There is a very terrifying fur carpet up here, and we're both wearing heels, so there could be some amazing pratfalls.
This will be an exciting way to go.
Hi, just so you know who's who, I'm Andy.
And I'm Robyn, hi.
And we are the Second City. How many of you have seen Second City before, by a show of hands?
Okay.
Awesome. How many of you have no idea what Second City is? You can be honest.
It's a safe place.
It's Chicago. Most people know where we're from.
Yes.
So Second City is a comedy theater. We're located just a few blocks north of here, a little bit east toward the lake. And we create sketch comedy. We're kind of content providers of a source. And we've been doing that since 1959. You probably know of some of our illustrious alumni. These are folks like Tina Fey, Stephen Colbert, Steve Carell, Mike Myers, John Belushi, Gilda Radner, and lots of other living people as well. So our alumni list goes on and on and on. We don't have any of their phone numbers, so don't ask us.
And they are not here. No.
And we have been doing that for years. And Robyn and I are here on behalf of Second City Works, which is the business-to-business arm of Second City. So any day of the week, you might find us doing any number of things. Still performing and writing at Second City. You'll see Robyn on stage tonight there, in fact. And we also get to tour on behalf of Second City Works, so we might be working with groups to help them be a little more innovative. We might be doing some executive presence coaching or presentation coaching. We might be helping groups to extract insights from consumer groups through a little bit of creative facilitation and improvisation. But all of that really goes back to the way that we create on stage.
So who here has seen a show at the Second City? Raise your hand. Excellent. Then you know our show is comprised of 3 acts. Our first 2 acts are scripted. That's sketch comedy, much like you see on Saturday Night Live. We have rehearsed these things. We've put them up in front of an audience. They have been tested and well approved, and they don't change too much from night to night. Our third act, however, is completely improvised. That is where we are holding up a mirror to society and saying, what is it that you want to hear? And sometimes ensemble members that have an idea that they want to put up on its feet. We talk about putting feet on ideas. We're improvising those ideas, turning them into songs, into scenes, and having this conversation, this shared experience with our audience while we're creating simultaneously and spontaneously. It's in that third act that we are continuing to write. For us, writing is not pen to paper. It's having these conversations with our client base and with one another and having a lot of fun in the process to create the material that people will see in the next show. In fact, we've had a lot of people come to see a show and they go, oh, that scene that is now in the scripted show is something that I saw happen in the improv set the night that I shouted out the word spoon, and they did this crazy funny rap about it, and now it's in the show. That's our process, and that in very many ways is our product.
We love to co-create with the audience, so we really get a charge out of testing material again and again, kind of reiteratively, night after night. And there's a bit of that process that we also take into our work with corporations. And we've worked with a lot of different marketers, whether we've been tasked with helping them come up with viral content or helping the people that kind of manage the data and the numbers and the research be able to tell those stories a little more provocatively, or whether it's to help to inspire the people that are coming up with the big ideas. And so our goal today is to enable you. We see a lot of great storytelling looking outwardly facing. We would love to inspire you to use that same storytelling acumen inwardly, telling the stories to the people that you need to sell the work to inside of the company. Because that's where we find that sometimes that storytelling skill falls apart. We'll give you an example, and we'll use The Wizard of Oz. How many of you know The Wizard of Oz story? Most of us, it's baked into our brain. Well, Robyn has been practicing her tight 2-minute version of it just to bring it front of mind.
I mean, if somebody wants to time me, go. So a tornado rips through Kansas, and it scoops up a little girl named Dorothy and her dog Toto and whisks them off in their house to the magical land of Oz. Once they're in Oz, they follow the yellow brick road to the Emerald City, and along their way, they encounter a scarecrow who needs a brain, a tin man who needs a heart, and a cowardly lion who really needs some courage. They find out from the magical Wizard of Oz that in order for Dorothy to get back home, they need to defeat the Wicked Witch of the West. They must collect her broomstick. And we find out in the end, and Dorothy lets us know this so clearly when she taps her red shoes, that there really is no place like home.
And possibly a secret message in the movie of appreciate America during the Dust Bowl. Who knows? But that is the story that we all know, and it has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end, it has all those elements that we really love. Here is what happens when we turn that into marketing speak. We sent Dorothy to spend an immersive consumer experience after she tested low on satisfaction in Kansas, 23% less than other young female adults, 11 to 14, portrayed by older actresses.
A variety of information channels were created to help Dorothy gain confidence as she traveled down a branded yellow brick road. 33% of her time was spent with a scarecrow, 33% of that time with a Tin Man, and 33% with a lion. A witch, singing munchkins increased engagement, and there were flying monkeys.
The results were stunning. Red Shoes jumped 14% in unaided recognition. Our No Place Like Home app was downloaded 50,000 times, and a surprising partnership with the Kansas State Tourism Bureau proved that once again we'd brought the house down, like Dorothy did on that witch.
Boom.
We had to add a joke.
Got to.
So we often we sit in presentations and see great stories of amazing work turned into streams of data, and we think that sometimes the passion and the joy and some of the art of storytelling is lost when you convey those stories and talk about your great case studies and talk about the great work that you've done. We've had the opportunity to coach agencies when they're putting together their award submissions for advertising awards, and we see this again and again. It takes some sifting to get to the great story. So we want to give you a couple of the things that help us to make great work on stage. And again, a lot of our work on stage is trial and error. P.S. There is no error. Our audience is there for free watching our improv set, so we have this amazing model to test out stuff. The stakes are low for us. But there's two things overall that makes that process work. The first one is creating from abundance, and the second one is getting very playful with how we frame the message.
And we want you to try this on for yourselves. So I want you to find a partner, and by finding a partner, it really is turning to the person to your right or to your left. You're going to have a quick conversation. So locate that person now. Some of you might have to turn behind you. Once you are in your powerful duo, I want one person in each pair to raise your hand. One person each pair, raise your hand. Make sure your partner's not raising his or her hand. That is the hardest part. Great, you can put your hand down. If you just raised your hand, you are person A. That would make your partner person number 1. Come on, everybody. We're all on the same level. So person A, you are going to pitch an idea to your partner, person number 1. And the idea is this. If you were to take away all the limitations and resources like time and budget and space reality, and you could go anywhere in the world for dinner tonight, just the two of you, where would you go? So person A, I want you to pitch the idea of where you should go to dinner tonight. Person 1, your job is to say no because and then fill in the blank. It's going to come back to the person who's pitching the idea. I want you to really sell, champion that idea of where you should have dinner. Person 1, when you respond again, this time we want you to say yes, but fill in the blank. It's going to go back and forth, hopefully 4 or 5 times, where person 1, you get to say no because, and you also get to say yes, but. Make sense? Person 1, you've got a script here. You've got your acting chops on. Chop, shop, couldn't help it. A, roll your shoulders back, take in a deep breath, and pitch your idea to person 1. Go. Give yourselves a nice round of applause. Acknowledge your partner. Acknowledge yourself. Okay. Person A, I'm going to ask you about that experience in just a moment, so lock it. Person 1, it is now your turn. You are going to share your amazing idea of where you think the two of you should go and have dinner tonight. Again, it can be anywhere in the universe, okay? Person A, your job is to always respond with the 2 words, yes and fill in the blank. Yes and fill in the blank will be your script, person number 1, as person A pitches the idea. Make sense? Face your partners and resume. yourselves a nice round of applause. Acknowledge yourself and your partner. Nicely done. So just a few quick questions about that experience. For the first person who was offering up their idea, you were met with no because and yes but. We'd love to hear your experience. Were either of those different? Which one did you prefer? Or were they the same for you? Let me hear from some of you. Person A. Or you can just shout out adjectives. What was it like to hear no because or yes but? What was it like? Frustrating. Thank you. I might have heard bad. What was that? Sad. Well, sometimes sad is bad. Sad's also, that's just a feeling. What else? What happened to your idea? Let me ask you that. Oh, it became very limited. Did you start hearing no to yourself instead of the idea? I'm seeing some people nodding their head. That tends to happen. This is a super low stakes environment. This is just an improv exercise, and you're not going there for dinner tonight. I know, I'm so sorry to break that to you. Yes, and you get to stay here in Chicago. We do that not because that there's anything wrong with saying no or yes, but it does tend to limit ideas. It limits the ability to create and collaborate together. And after a while, we start hearing no to this right here, not necessarily to the idea, this product that we seem to keep outside of ourselves. We forget that as the storyteller is the one who's presenting the idea, it's hard to not take things personally when we're making ourselves vulnerable and taking a risk like that. So person one, you got yes-anded. You're welcome there. At the Second City, we actually use it as a verb. What was that experience like, hearing yes and to your idea? Enthusiastic, exciting. What else? Awesome and fun. All four words that we really love. It is enthusiastic, it is exciting, and it's really fun. It is the basic tenet at the Second City. Yes and is how we were able to create with our audiences and with one another. We talk about bringing a brick, not a cathedral. That when we start from this place of abundance, we're not necessarily saying that we agree or that we like the idea. We don't always even have to agree with or like the person. What we're doing is accepting that information and offering something in return. So for the person who was using yes and, person A, what was that experience like, getting to be a part of the creation process? What's that? Also exciting, because in the end, whose idea was it in that second round? Yeah, it was both people's idea, as opposed to that first round, person A, you were doing all the work there. So for us, we talk about creating a big menu of options. We're saying yes to all of these ideas. We're not saying we're absolutely going to do them. We're not getting married. What we're doing is accepting them and playing with them. We create from abundance, and then after we put it up in front of an audience, after we've done some editing, there comes a time and place for us to say no to certain ideas. What people get real excited about, though, is that process, is that journey, much like Dorothy took in The Wizard of Oz.
We often tell our students to do that creating from abundance. We have about 200 sketch writing students at any given time. I'm the head of the writing program, and so I'm in charge of making sure that we're guiding them forward. And rather than trying to be precise in what they write, we really encourage them to be a little more generative, create lots of ideas. Often we're writing with a point of view in mind, like a very particular, sometimes controversial message or idea or opinion, and it might not work. We have the luxury of trying it one night, it fails, trying it the next night, it fails, changing something, trying it that third night, now it's starting to make some inroads. We try to also translate that to our writers, trying out a lot of different options, creating several different framings, several different entry points, try to put that same scene into different environments. And when people are talking about great marketing work, that starts to translate into this sense of trying different ways of telling it. We often hear the same kind of case study told the same way over and over again. When we realize, wait, if you just recontextualize those results, suddenly that makes a lot more sense to me. There's a little bit of an anemia going into it. You're often telling the same stories the same way over and over again, or the way that it was handed to you, rather than using that abundance, that sense of yes and. For us, the framing is one of the ways that we do that. So we're going to play with that now. Turn to a new partner if you would. So say goodbye to your old partner, trade them in for a brand new partner. It may not be possible.
Not better, just new, not better.
Yeah, not better, just different.
Okay.
Great, meet a new person. Beautiful. If you're an orphan, you can join a trio. Not a threesome, a trio.
That's
Great.
right. We've learned.
Great. Whoever has the longer hair in your duo or trio, whoever has the longer hair, raise your
And
hand.
don't make it a science experiment. Yeah. Okay.
Good. If your hair's in a bun, you'll just have to be mysterious. Perfect. So, whoever had the longer hair, you are going to tell a 60-second story, and this is a personal accomplishment. It could also be a team accomplishment if you wanted to do that, but it could be an accomplishment. It could be a personal one from home or from work. Either is totally fine, but it's something that you feel proud about. Something that actually changed or transformed. So it could be something like running a marathon, or starting a volunteer organization, or just joining a volunteer organization, finding an hour to be alone every night of just rest and relaxation. No one in this room has that going on. Starting a new activity, doing some sort of a change or adaptation. Any of those can be considered an accomplishment. So tell that story in 60 seconds. 60 seconds goes really fast, and it starts now.
Ten seconds left. Start to wrap up your story. 10 seconds. Three, two, one, and scene. Acknowledge your partner.
How many of you finished your story in 30 seconds and just stared awkwardly at each other? Anyone? Thank you for your honesty. How many of you were just getting warmed up? You could have gone another 30 minutes. Great. How many of you were right at 60 seconds? You nailed it. Time is so elastic, ladies and gentlemen. Here's our question. In telling that story, who was the hero of that story? Yeah, yourself. You're telling an accomplishment story. And that's our natural way of telling those stories. When I talk about the stuff that I do at Second City, it's very easy for me to go into a laundry list. I think we even started with a little bit of that. A laundry list of the things that I do. For certain audiences, especially a prospective student, talking about a student's journey is much more interesting. So rather than tell you that at the training center for the writing program, I schedule classes, I assign teachers, I deal with trouble students, I sometimes kick those students out of the program, I deal with teachers when they're misbehaving, I reward them when they're behaving well, all that stuff. It's much more interesting for me to tell you about a student who moves to Chicago because they have the dream of performing at Second City, or beyond that, for Saturday Night Live. That student signs up for classes at Second City. They know nothing about comedy. They they know they want to do it, but they have no structure. The classes at Second City provide the structure for them. That student is slowly able to feel more and more confident, and after a year of doing it, they're able to cast a show and put up a show with actors on stage and actually have a sellout program. I'm telling you the story from the perspective, still about what I do and create for the Second City, but now I'm telling you the journey of a student. I've relocated the hero to, I guess, our end customer. So in the stories that you just told, we'd love you to turn back to that person you spoke with and think about who or what else could be the hero. So for example, if it was about running a marathon, you could tell that story from the point of view of the shoes. You could talk about the organization that you were raising money for. You could talk about your spouse that never saw you for 6 months while you were training. We define the hero as the thing that transforms. Heroes transform. Dorothy transformed, but retold in Wicked, the multi-million-dollar making musical, the witch transforms. It's a different way of telling that same story that's suddenly fresh and new and interesting and might attract a different audience. So very quickly, in about 30 seconds, just quickly shout out who or what else could be the hero in that story that you just told. Turn to your partner and go. Good. Acknowledge your partner if you would.
Nice round of applause. We like the sound of clapping.
I know this is totally out of context, but who were some of the other heroes you discovered? Just shout them out. Friends.
Friends.
Your mom. Coffee. Always my hero.
Always a hero.
Always the hero, universally. Any other interesting heroes you discovered?
Okay, she just said Charlie Sheen, and that might be the first time we've heard that in a long time, so that
Yeah,
is cool.
so he does thank you.
Yeah, he does.
What becomes available when you think of that same story through the point of view of a different hero?
Humor.
Humor? More content? What else? It's unique. Again, it's a different way of telling it. It's a different way of talking about that work. Often we talk about the work that we've done, especially marketing work, like we did this, then we did this, then we tried this. It's very interesting to give maybe at least a capsule of someone experienced it like this, someone started like this. Certainly in doing award submissions around advertising, people start to take on that, how did the world change? And I think that there's a fundamental human need. We all want to know how the work that you're doing changes the world. And when you can talk about it in that way, rather than putting in all those $5 words that are meant for your boss's boss's boss, then you start to find stories that make sense. And most of what we do when we teach presentation skills is talking about finding the way of talking about that story that turns you on, that lights you up. And it's very hard to get lit up about bullet points, but very exciting to get lit up about lives that are changed. For us on stage, we fail again and again and again in telling our stories until we find that one way that's just right, that one way of carrying across a very controversial topic in a way that everyone in the audience will at least listen to it, we hope learn from it, and at best start to connect because of that way of telling that story. We don't think that everyone's going to walk away thinking the same way as us, but we do want them to be able to listen to that story. At this point, we really just want to open it up to answer any questions that you have either about our work at Second City, anything that we did today, or yes and.
Yes.
Check, check. Hi, I have a question. I was wondering, why is it called Second City?
Ooh, that's a great question.
good
And
question.
there are probably as many answers to that, but we'll give you our main answer. And that is that this, I was looking to you because I think we have a couple of stories.
Right.
So a long time ago, Chicago was called the Second City after New York, and our comedy institution embraced that. Instead of trying to overcome that or try to get our elbows around that, like we're better than second, we went, yeah, that's right, number two. We are best at being the Second City number two. That's one story.
And that's the same story that I've heard, that there was an article in a New York magazine that called Chicago the second city after New York. And we took that to heart and kind of took that name and ran with it.
Yeah, we did. We said, thank you, yes, and. No one can be number two like us. And it's the truth. Great question.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Hi. Oops, sorry, that was loud.
Oh,
Do
it's
you
good.
have any examples of success stories of B2B clients who overcame a challenge using Yes and or launched a really successful campaign?
Yes, I can talk about some. I can't necessarily name the products themselves, but one of the things that we're really excited about doing lately is a thing called Brand Stage, where a product comes in and they might have a specific concern or be relaunching the brand or going back to kind of an older way of speaking to the customer or just discovering a new way. And they come in with their very specific brief. We improvise with consumers in the room to discover insights around that. And we've had several cases where it wasn't that it was no huge aha moment, but what happened was they discovered this layer of emotional articulation around the insights that they already knew that suddenly got everyone unstuck. And so they were able to move forward so that really the brief that they were able to present was much more evocative, much more creative. And in some cases, what happens is the brand and the agency are there in the room together, and they just kind of heal some lives and heal some friction too. And there's been several cases where we've been able to see the work move forward very fast after that.
Great question. Any other questions or thoughts? Did anything, even just from the two exercises that we did something resonate with you and perhaps inspire you to tell your story differently? Those are all good.
Thank you for that.
Someone just said
timid yes.
I mean, that is a yes or no question.
Over
Yeah.
in the corner.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Wondering if, my name is Deirdre and I work at NewsCred, but I'm wondering if you've helped brands use humor in their marketing efforts.
Ooh, that's
and if
something
so,
that
how
Andy
so?
can speak to, absolutely.
Yes, I can talk to that. Actually, we worked with, and this is still online right now, so we did some work for Hartford Insurance, and they were trying to specifically reach millennials. And they had some messaging around death and dismemberment, disability insurance, things that are not so sexy, and millennials just do not see that as part of the landscape. And so we designed a process with them. What we wanted to do was to really take the insights that they already had and find ways to make them fun. There were so many guardrails that they were really unable to be creative and playful around it. They knew they wanted to use humor in it, but all they could see was the blockades, the compliance, the legalese. And so because we're not necessarily steeped in that, because we're kind of these naive performers coming in, we were able to simply put our ideas up on stage and improvise around them. They were able to tell us what was working, not so much what wasn't working. We tried to gravitate around what was, and we continued to explore those areas until we started to discover improvisationally back and forth with them and a couple millennial experts and millennials in the room, we started to discover ideas that seemed to be working. That with a little bit of refinement and polish, we could actually make those get through their legal hurdles, and they started to really represent the way the brand wanted to speak, but there was humor in it. And we kept testing those over and over again until we found just the right way to do it so that we could carry that brand message in a way that was funny, interesting. It felt for us very Second City because we were also putting our name on it, but it also felt for the brand like they're getting that message across. And even more so than putting those, and those are actually on their website, even more so than being able to put those on, it gave them kind of a lexicon of ways to speak with millennials as they did future marketing. We had kind of discovered a little bit of a sniff test for what worked comedically and what didn't work comedically. And we know on stage, we might think that something is the funniest thing in the world, and you put that on stage and it falls apart. We just don't know why. And it is about reiteration and failure, allowing things that are funny to fail until you find the thing that works.
I think that's in our skill set, is to take what we do so seriously, to not take ourselves too seriously, and realize that we are not the experts in that world. We realize where our expertise lies, and we can support people in those conversations and being playful and having fun with topics that clearly are not playful and fun.
Yeah, in a world where one bad tweet can get you in a lot of trouble, we're all for finding ways to be able to play safely with your audience. And for us, that's inviting them to stay for a free improv set after the show. The stakes are low. We have their permission to fail, to make mistakes, to offend in that time. During the show itself, when it's on opening night, when there's critics in the house, not so much. When that show tours to Cincinnati, Ohio, and is opening, it's already been shifted and changed for that audience. We put our audience first, and then we find the times when we can actually get wild, get loose, and fail.
Wild, loose, and fail.
Our work is done. Wild, loose, and fail, ladies and gentlemen. Any other questions? Yes. The microphone is as far away as possible.
She is really putting a hustle to it, too, and some heels. I
She's
appreciate it.
got some nice shoes on.
Yes, she does.
Hi, let's say, completely hypothetically speaking, there are some people in the organization who their sort of default way of thinking is the no but way of thinking. What are some sort of strategies or safe ways to encourage them to adopt the yes and?
Oh, that's a great question and completely hypothetical, I'm sure. We talk about using yes and in the face of no, that not everyone is going to take some kind of yes and workshop. And for us, yes isn't always about nodding our head and saying the word yes. For us, it's a mindset. If I can remain open and receptive to any and all information I'm getting, even if it's in the form of crossed arms and heads that are shaking saying no, I can listen. That's what yes and allows us to do. We listen all the way through. Why are they saying no? It's usually fear-based. So how can I then meet the human need? How can I continue to basically model the behavior that I'm wanting from them? We're not saying that this is some Jedi trick and that everyone's going to be like, these are not the droids that you're looking for. We do find, though, that it works. it becomes physiologically very difficult for people to continue to negate and say no in the face of someone that's saying, thank you for sharing that with me. I didn't realize that was a current concern. Tell me more about that. That's interesting. It's forcing me to have to think of different ways to do it. So we're building this bridge in communication, which is what Yes and is.
We have a book called Yes and. It doesn't have all the answers. It has some very interesting and funny anecdotes from backstage. It also has some really interesting case studies where we see yes and being used or where we see that yes and was not used.
Great question. And since we do use yes and as a verb, we are going to yes and all of you and say thank you so much for your time. Please give yourselves a nice round of applause.
And thank you very much for having us today.